Good afternoon and Salam Malaysia Madani. You're watching World Today. I'm Mona Priya. Before we begin, here's a brief look at today's top stories. Prime Minister Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim spoke with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi yesterday to discuss the latest developments in West Asia. He said the discussions focused on the worsening situation, especially during the month of Ramadan, which should be a time of peace and reflection. Japanese Prime Minister condemned Iran's attacks in the Strait of Hormuz and told US President that only he could achieve peace. She added that the global economy now faces a significant hit because of this development. Washington denied any involvement in the attack on Iranian gas facilities, even though it acknowledged being aware of the operation. Donald Trump said he had advised Israel not to launch strikes on Iran's gas facilities. The Turkish foreign minister advised Iran to avoid expanding its conflict with the US and Israel into West Asia. He said Israel was the main perpetrator of the war, but that Iran had a historic responsibility not to attack regional countries. India's foreign ministry called attacks on energy infrastructure in the Gulf unacceptable following Iranian strikes. The assaults mark the biggest escalation yet in the US-Israeli conflict with Iran, sending global oil and gas prices soaring and raising fears for the world economy. President Emmanuel Macron said France maintains a strictly defensive stance in the West Asian conflict and will continue to push for de-escalation. He also urged all parties to immediately halt strikes on civilian infrastructure, especially water and energy facilities. Central banks around the world have announced they will keep benchmark interest rates unchanged. The decision comes amid heightened global economic risks from the conflict in West Asia. The Rafah border crossing between Gaza and Egypt reopened Thursday, nearly 3 weeks after Israel closed it. The UN and WHO recently helped evacuate 9 trauma patients and 16 companions from Gaza to Egypt for medical treatment. Despite a recent points deduction ending their 2027 Asian Cup qualification hopes, Harimau Malaya remain determined. They will face Vietnam in their final Group F match in Hanoi on the 31st of March. FIFA reaffirmed its commitment to using the World Cup as a platform to bring people together amid global geopolitical tensions. President Gianni Infantino issued the statement as conflicts raised uncertainty over Iran's participation in the tournament. And that's today's top news in a quick snapshot. Up next, the complete World Today Bulletin with the details that matter. Stay tuned. You're watching World Today. Prime Minister Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim spoke with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi yesterday to discuss the latest developments in West Asia. In a Facebook post, Datuk Sri Anwar said he conveyed Malaysia's firm and consistent stance in condemning Israel's bombing of Iran, which was backed by the United States. He said the discussion focused on the worsening situation in West Asia, especially during the month of Ramadan, which should be a time of peace and reflection. The Prime Minister said he and Modi agreed to call for an immediate cessation of hostilities and to intensify efforts in upholding peace, diplomacy and constructive dialogue. Datuk Sri Anwar said both leaders also agreed that Malaysia and India must work together to strengthen a collective voice on international platforms, including the United Nations and BRICS. He said such cooperation is increasingly crucial amid a challenging global economic environment, which is also affecting food security. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi said that prolonged wars have no winners and that a ceasefire and an end to hostilities reflect the will of the people. In a phone call with British Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper, the two discussed West Asia. Cooper outlined Britain's view, stressing the need for close communication with China to help end the war, resume diplomacy and pursue long-term solutions. Wang said the escalating conflict threatens regional stability and disrupts global energy, finance, trade and shipping, harming all countries. He urged an immediate stop to military operations and called for resolving differences through equal dialogue. As permanent UN Security Council members, China and Britain share responsibility for maintaining international peace, he said, adding that both sides should strengthen coordination and uphold the UN Charter and international norms. They also discussed bilateral ties and agreed to implement leaders' consensus, expand exchanges, and advance their comprehensive strategic partnership to provide stability in a turbulent world. Now, Japanese Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi condemned Iran's attacks in the Strait of Hormuz and told US President Donald Trump that only he could achieve peace. Takaichi, speaking to reporters in the Oval Office, said that the global economy was about to take a hit due to the turmoil in West Asia.
かなり厳しい影響を受けつつあります。イランに関してはもう核兵器の開発、これは許されてはならないことですから、日本も働きかけをしてきました。
Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump said that the US needed more funding for a lot of reasons amid the Iran war when asked about a media report that Pentagon was seeking $200 billion USD for the conflict.
What we're talking about in Iran, this is a very volatile world, and the military equipment, the power of some of this weaponry is unthinkable. You don't even want to know about it. Oh, you could end this thing in 2 seconds if you wanted to, but we are being very judicious.
On another note, Washington has denied any involvement in the attack on Iranian gas facilities, although it acknowledged being aware of the operation. President Donald Trump said he had advised Israel not to strike Iran's gas facilities. The attack on the South Pass gas field triggered a retaliatory response from Tehran, which targeted energy infrastructure in Qatar. Meanwhile, the United States is reportedly considering easing sanctions on Iranian oil exports already at sea, following a surge in energy prices caused by the West Asian conflict. Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan advised Iran to avoid expanding its conflict with the United States and Israel into West Asia. He emphasized that Tehran's attacks on neighboring regional countries are considered unacceptable. Speaking in Doha, Fidan said Israel was the main perpetrator of the war, but that Iran had a historic responsibility not to attack regional countries. He said Ankara was in contact with both Washington and Tehran to understand where they stood, and that Turkey's efforts to end the conflict would continue.
Yani bir defa nerede duruyorlar onu anlamaya çalışıyoruz. Mevcut şartlarda daha kötüye yayılmasını nasıl engelleyebiliriz? Onun arayışı içerisindeyiz.
وأيضا ما هو الدور
In a related development, United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres urged the US and Israel to stop the war and called on Iran to stop attacking its neighbors.
to the United States and to Israel. It's high time to end this war that is risking to get completely out of control, causing immense suffering on civilians, and with propagation around the global economy that is really dramatic, with potential tragic consequences. Second message to Iran: stop attacking your neighbors.
Indian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Randy Jaiswal said that attacks on the energy infrastructure in the Gulf region were unacceptable following Iranian strikes on energy targets across the West Asia. Now, the strikes are the biggest escalation yet in the US-Israeli war in Iran, which began nearly 3 weeks ago, sending global oil and gas prices soaring and stoking fears about the impact on the global economy.
The recent attacks against energy installations in different locations across this region are therefore deeply disturbing and only serve to further destabilize an already uncertain energy scenario for the whole world. Such attacks are unacceptable and need to cease.
The Iranian aerial attacks caused extensive damage to the world's largest gas plant in Qatar, targeted a refinery in Saudi Arabia, forced the United Arab Emirates to shut gas facilities, and started fires at 2 Kuwaiti refineries. The Iranian attacks come after Iran's own energy facilities in the South Pars refinery were targeted on Wednesday. President Emmanuel Macron said that France maintains a strictly defensive stance in the West Asian conflict and will continue to push for de-escalation. Now, speaking after a European summit in Brussels, he described upholding international law and promoting de-escalation as a fair and proportionate position and the best France can do.
Je n'ai entendu personne marquer une disponibilité pour entrer dans ce conflit, au contraire. Et je ne pense pas que participer à une escalade, si elle devait arriver, réglerait en quoi que ce soit la situation internationale et les conséquences qu'elle a sur nos économies. Donc je pense que la position qui est la nôtre, qui consiste d'abord à défendre le droit international, à essayer d'être des partenaires loyaux, fiables pour nos alliés et ceux avec qui nous avons des accords, et d'aider à la désescalade et à la liberté de navigation, est une position juste, proportionnée, et c'est le mieux que nous puissions faire.
Macron also urged all parties to immediately adopt a moratorium on strikes against civilian infrastructure, particularly water and energy facilities. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz said that he and others defended the emissions trading system, or ETS, during the EU summit debates on high energy prices, emphasizing it is not being questioned. He added that support measures for affected member states should be tailored, targeted and temporary, noting the European Commission plans to fine-tune the ETS by July this year.
Die Maßnahmen, die es geben soll jetzt für einzelne Mitgliedstaaten, die besonders von hohen Energiepreisen betroffen sind, ich sage es jetzt mal in dem Sprachgebrauch, den wir verwendet haben, sollen sein tailored, targeted und temporary, also maßgeschneidert, zielgerichtet und auf Zeit. Das halten wir für richtig. Die Kommission wird auch noch bis Juli 2026 einige Nachjustierungen des ETS vorschlagen, aber das sind eben Nachjustierungen, nicht im Kern Veränderungen.
Energy prices rose further on Thursday after Iran retaliated for an Israeli strike on a major gas field by attacking Qatar's Ras Laffan industrial city, which handles about a fifth of global liquefied natural gas, causing damage expected to take years to repair. The UN's Maritime Agency called for a safe shipping corridor in the Gulf to evacuate stranded vessels and seafarers following emergency talks in London. After 2 days of discussions prompted by the West Asian conflict, the International Maritime Organization, IMO, said that the corridor should be a provisional, urgent measure to move ships through the Strait of Hormuz. Secretary-General Arsenio Dominguez described it as a humanitarian effort focused on voluntarily evacuating vessels trapped in the Gulf. The proposal is part of a non-binding 17-point declaration by IMO's 40-member council. Around 20,000 seafarers remain stranded on roughly 3,200 ships. The evacuation plan, proposed by several nations, including Bahrain, Japan and the UAE, has backing from the US and aims to protect seafarers while avoiding military escalation. Dominguez said that he would begin talks with the regional countries to establish the corridor. Separately, 6 global powers said they were ready to support efforts to secure passage through the strait, though details remain unclear. Germany, meanwhile, said that any involvement would depend on conditions after a ceasefire and an international mandate. Central banks around the world have announced that they will keep their benchmark interest rates unchanged amid heightened global economic risks stemming from the conflict in West Asia. The Bank of England said in a statement that it had kept its benchmark interest rate unchanged at 3.75%. The Swiss National Bank maintained its policy rate at 0%, a third straight hold since June 2025. The European Central Bank also kept its benchmark interest rate on hold at 2% for the 6th consecutive meeting. The Bank of Japan decided to leave its benchmark interest rate unchanged at around 0.75% after concluding its 2-day monetary policy meeting. And the Bank of Canada announced that it will maintain its target for the policy rate at 2.25%. Now, the Rafah border crossing, which links the Gaza Strip with Egypt, reopened on Thursday for the first time since Israel closed it on the 28th of February. The United Nations, in collaboration with the World Health Organization, recently facilitated the medical evacuation of 9 adult trauma patients and 16 companions from Gaza into Egypt. UN spokesperson Farhan Haq noted that these evacuations were critical as the urgent care required for the injuries is currently unavailable within the enclave.
As a reminder, 18,000 patients in Gaza remain without the treatment that they urgently need. Most patients will be able to access care once the Israeli authorities allow the resumption of referrals to the West Bank, including East Jerusalem. Meanwhile, scaling up health services within Gaza remains a top priority.
He said 3 planned UN convoys were cancelled on Wednesday after Israeli authorities said only fuel will be allowed in, forcing agencies to leave food and other supplies behind. Thailand's Anutin Chanvirakul held a meeting with the government officials regarding the country's energy security immediately after being re-elected as Prime Minister. Anutin sailed through Thursday's parliamentary vote to become the first re-elected Prime Minister in 2 decades, a fresh mandate that could bring rare stability for the turbulent politics of the Southeast Asian nation. Anutin won the backing of 293 of Parliament's 499 members on Thursday, more than twice the 119 votes Nathapong secured. He offered no immediate comment on his victory, but headed into a meeting on energy security. Thailand has assured that petrol and diesel supplies remain sufficient despite a sharp surge in demand driven by public anxiety. Prime Minister Anuthin Chanvirakul said that the country continues to secure crude oil imports from multiple sources with no disruption to supply, even as fuel consumption has risen significantly above normal levels. He said daily fuel consumption has increased from around 67 million litres to 84 million litres, while production and imports remain stable. He added that the problem now is that when people become anxious, demand rises, even though supply remains stable. Umberto Bossi, the fiery founder of the anti-immigrant Northern League who championed independence for Italy's wealthy north, has died at 84. A longtime ally of Silvio Berlusconi, Bossi turned his regional party into a major political force and served nearly 30 years in parliament. Tributes from right-wing leaders followed his death in Varese, with Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni calling his impact on Italy's centre-right fundamental, and Foreign Minister Antonio Tajani describing him as a key agent of change. Bossi founded the Northern League in the late 1980s, railing against Roma Ladrona, or thieving Rome, and advocating for a breakaway northern state he called Padania. The party later joined all three Berlusconi governments. After a 2004 stroke, Bossi briefly withdrew from politics but returned to campaign in 2008, maintaining his hardline rhetoric against Rome and immigrants. He resigned as party leader in 2012 amid corruption allegations and was convicted of embezzlement in 2017, though the ruling was later voided due to the statute of limitations. Matteo Salvini succeeded him in 2013, rebranding the party as the League to broaden its appeal nationwide. It is now part of Meloni's governing coalition. Coming up, Harimau Malaya will give their best against Vietnam. Now, despite their 2027 Asian Cup qualification hopes being dashed by a recent points deduction, Harimau Malaya remain determined for their final Group F match against Vietnam in Hanoi on the 31st of March. Chief Executive Officer Rob Friend affirmed the team will compete with the same belief, resilience and discipline they demonstrated throughout their unbeaten 2025, which included a 4-0 victory over Vietnam. He acknowledged the Asian Football Confederation's decision to award 3-0 losses to Nepal and Vietnam due to the fielding of ineligible players, impacting their qualification chances. Friend also thanked supporters for their unwavering belief amidst the heritage player controversy. The points deduction leaves Malaysia with 9 points. Even a win against Vietnam wouldn't secure the top spot needed for Asian Cup qualification, as Vietnam would still lead the group. The AFC's investigation into document falsification by FAM involved 7 heritage players previously suspended by FIFA: Facundo Garces, Rodrigo Holgado, Emmanuel Machuca, Joao Figueiredo, Gabriel Palmero, John Irazabal and Hector Hevel. Adding to that, Negeri Sembilan FC striker Lokman Hakim Shamsuddin has been recalled to the national squad for the final Group F match against Vietnam. According to an official Facebook post by Malaysia NT, Lokman is among 5 strikers selected alongside Faisal Halim, Paulo Josue, Mohammad Ramadan Saifullah and Safawi Rashid. The selection provides Lokman with an opportunity to wear the Harimau Malaya jersey again after almost 4 years, with his last appearance in March 2022. Head coach Peter Klamovsky also included 2 new faces in the defence position, Mohammad Feroz Baharudin and Mohammad Shami Safari. The national squad is scheduled to begin training camp next Monday before continuing preparations in Bangkok and then departing for Hanoi. Vietnam currently leads Group F with 15 points, followed by Malaysia 9 points, while Laos and Nepal share 3 points. Malaysia's hopes of qualifying for the Asian Cup on merit have been affected following a point deduction by the AFC after the FAM was found to have fielded an ineligible player in 2 matches. Now, FIFA reaffirmed its commitment to making the World Cup a platform for bringing people together amid global geopolitical tensions. President Gianni Infantino issued the statement following ongoing conflicts that have also raised uncertainty over Iran's participation in the tournament.
Well, it's indeed 84 days to go until the World Cup kicks off on the 11th of June. It's very soon. We, of course, all know about the geopolitical situation around the world. And we said it many times, FIFA or football can certainly not solve geopolitical conflicts around the world. What we can, however, do, and what we will do, is use football and use the World Cup to bring people together, to build bridges, to foster understanding and peace between people from all over the world.
Iran, among the first teams to qualify, is considering withdrawing following the conflict with Israel and the US, as well as security concerns. The team is scheduled to compete in Group G against New Zealand, Belgium and Egypt, with all scheduled matches taking place in the US. On a separate note, FIFA has imposed a fine of $190,700 on the Israel Football Association, IFA, for various violations related to anti-discrimination. A report by FIFA's disciplinary committee found that the IFA failed to take appropriate action against the club, Beta Jerusalem, over ongoing racist behavior among its supporters. In October 2024, the Palestinian Football Association reported allegations of discrimination by the IFA to FIFA, which then launched an investigation. Meanwhile, the disciplinary committee stressed that racist chants such as terrorist directed at Arab players are not isolated incidents, but instead tarnish the image of the sport. FIFA also issued a warning to the IFA and ordered the display of anti-discrimination messages during 3 matches. In addition, 1/3 of the fine must be used for an action plan to combat discrimination and prevent such incidents from recurring. And moving on to golf, Bryson DeChambeau and Charles Howell III share the top spot with a one-shot lead after posting 8 under par in the first round of the LIV Golf event. The competition in Johannesburg, South Africa, saw Howell deliver an impressive performance with 8 birdies and no bogeys, while DeChambeau recorded 9 birdies but dropped a shot at the par 3 8th. Home player Brandon Grace is tied for third with Sergio Garcia at 7 under par. The inaugural LIV Golf event on African soil also saw the home team, Southern Guards, lead the team event at 18 under par. South Africa, which has a long history in golf, rarely hosts high-profile tournaments, but this edition has drawn attention with the participation of world-class players. About 100,000 tickets are expected to be sold over the next 4 days of the tournament through to the 22nd of March. And that wraps up World Today. Tune in to Malaysia Tonight, coming up at 8:30 p.m. on TV1 and Saluran Berita RTM. I'm Mohana Priya. Salam Malaysia Madani. Thank you for your company.